In the Trench Crusade lore, why did God wipe out the city of Argos? When has this happened before? What are the words of God that are heard by observers and that can guide them, or that can uncreate? What language is that? How can it communicate across barriers of language and understanding? That's what we'll start on today. Then we will come back around to having fun, speculating on some further ideas for this synod to deploy. So welcome back to the trenches and let's begin. The observers are highly trained monks who operate under the synod for strategic prophecy. The item they use that interests us is the Oculus helmet. Observers wear it, enabling them to attune to the voice of God. This remarkable connection grants them the capacity to simultaneously perceive the immediate past, present, and future to a degree. They must pick out words that God has spoken that aids them from a narrative going back as far as the start of creation, and that voice, the voice of God, it never decays. They also practice the recitation of the words of God, granting them the power to issue commands to anyone they address, friend or foe. So listening to the words of God, of creation, and using those words to command others. Here's where we ask, what are those words? What language is it? When a command can be used on anyone who might not speak that tongue, but will understand and obey. There is also an example of the heretics using those words as ammunition that unleashes echoes of the reversed words of God's creation, the echo designed to undo his divine work. So we will draw on some real-world lore about the studies done by John Dee into the words of angels or God and the language that emerged from that. But first, the Tower of Babel or Babel, however you like to say it. The Britannica defines this as a tower built in Babylonia, an attempt to explain the existence of diverse human languages. The Babylonians wanted to make a name for themselves by building a mighty city and a tower with its top in the heavens. God disrupted the work by so confusing the language of the workers that they could no longer understand one another. The city was never completed and the people were dispersed over the face of the earth. So you can see this was a question, an attempt at understanding raised within Genesis. Someone else who tried to tackle and explain this was John Dee, who was an English mathematician, natural philosopher, and student of the occult. At one point in his life, Dee sought divine assistance by attempting to converse with angels. He and his medium, the convicted counterfeiter Edward Kelly, held numerous seances both in England and on the continent. This language was dubbed Enochian and has echoes in other sci-fi lore, such as 40k, where it's dubbed Enuncia and is a form of powerful magic. According to ancient origins, John Dee and Edward Kelly claimed this celestial speech allowed magicians and occultists to communicate with angelic realms, providing them with the foundations of a language with which to communicate with the other side. This angelic language contained its own alphabet, grammar and syntax, which they wrote down in journals. This came from scrying. Scrying is a technique used by seers, psychics and sorcerers to foretell the future and involves gazing into a reflective surface to receive messages. The new language was called Enochian and comes from John Dee's assertion that the biblical patriarch Enoch had been the last human to know the language. Enoch was a source of hidden mystical knowledge and was taken up to heaven. According to Genesis 5:24, he walked with God. So you can see where I'm going with this, right? I propose that Enochian, this language of angels, is the word of creation, that language that is listened to in the Oculus helmet and echoed in the unworking by heretics. That's what the observers hear when they attune to the voice of God, Enochian, and that's what is said between God and his angels, and is used to command creation by the Creator, and it's the word of God, and he created all that. That's why it breaks across understanding and language barriers. And I further propose that this might tie in with Goetic magic, which is something used by the court of the seven-headed serpent. It draws on suffering, and I think the God in Trench Crusade draws on a similar source, and that the magic from either side might have that same source. Now the city. The one line we have on this is in 1477, the city of Argos is taken by God and it is no more. So assuming it was destroyed and not taken away by God to save those people, what did this place do? There's an example of a city being destroyed by angels. It's a story in the Bible about Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah are notoriously sinful cities in the biblical book of Genesis, destroyed by sulfur and fire because of their wickedness. Sodom and Gomorrah, along with the cities of Admah, Zeboim and Zoar, constituted the 5 cities of the plain. To tell the larger tale in brief, it starts with God saying, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." According to the Britannica, in the Genesis account, God reveals to Abraham that Sodom and Gomorrah are to be destroyed for their grave sins. Abraham pleads for the lives of any righteous people living there, especially the lives of his nephew Lot and his family. Abraham seems to negotiate with God on behalf of the righteous in the 2 cities. God first agrees to spare the cities if 50 righteous people can be found, and eventually agrees to spare them only if 10 righteous people can be found. 2 angels appearing as men are sent to Lot in Sodom, but are met with a wicked mob who are struck blind by the angels due to their actions. Finding only Lot and his family as righteous among the inhabitants, the angels warn Lot to quickly evacuate the city and not look back. As they flee the destruction, Lot's wife looks back upon the city and is turned into a pillar of salt. God says it is like this. Once God's plan was firmly set to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, the 2 men, God's angels, acted with urgency to get Lot and his family to leave Sodom, so they would be spared the moment they were safe. God rained down burning sulfur on the cities. When God tells you to obey, obey now. And it was not just the city. When God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, he not only destroyed the cities, but all the people in them, the entire plain and all the vegetation. He showed that he has the power to destroy anything. In other words, he made the city disappear. Now, why would Argos be taken if it was wicked like those places? I think to fit in with the law, it has to be some place filled with real sin and suffering. There, perhaps Goetic magic, the magic of the court of the 7-headed serpent, reached such a level that it could have been a threat to the larger forces on display. And remember, this is not at the current moment in the timeline of Trinity Crusade, but in its past. What exactly was wicked we can't really say, only guess. So let me know what you think to this law, trying to explain the voice of God, what's heard in the Oculus helmet, or what happened to the city that disappeared. Drop me those comments down below, and if you happen to like this video on the Trinity Crusade, well, why not try this one?